ground floor.
Is glitchy, or one of the cell phones has run out of memory and stopped recording. It happened with David, that episode I've told you about, or you've seen, where it recorded. So I went to him, I set up the camera for him, I press record, and then I came this side. He then told me, listen, the camera is sort of like cutting off the top of your head, should I adjust it? And I said, yeah, please adjust it. And he adjusted it, and he accidentally pressed the button, and it stopped recording. And he doesn't have an iPhone, so the entire podcast, he's like checking, and he's like, yeah, it looks like it's still on, but he obviously doesn't know what that looks like.
So basically, I'm your favorite SRC president to be on the show.
Definitely, 100%. 100%. Sorry, David. No, but it's like, I was telling you at lunch now, I've now made a policy where I try my very best. I mean, obviously, it's only possible if I'm doing podcasts in person, but I try my very best to have lunch with the person before or after, or breakfast or whatever, just to spend some time with them. Because I realized that I was starting to do a lot of podcasts with people who I don't know. And then if it's a situation where I just rock up at their place, we set up and we record, it becomes a bit interviewee, which is not what I want. So beforehand, I'm like, okay, let's just go and get to know each other first, and let's just have a chat, tell some stories, blah, blah, blah. And then by the time we get to the podcast, things are much more comfortable.
I'm insulted that after all this time, you still feel that you need to get to know me.
But
thank you for the lunch. Thank you for the lunch.
With you, every time I see you, it's like I need to get to know a new person.
And I'm multifaceted.
You see, we won't talk on the podcast now about the censored topics that we were discussing earlier, about the girls you're into and all that. We won't talk about that now, but I need a thorough update. Every time I meet you, we need at least half an hour to an hour for you to tell me how things are going in that department.
There's no girls I'm into.
There's no girls you're into at all. Okay, so welcome back to the show, my friend. This is now your third time.
This is my third time.
Excellent. Do you ever hear feedback from people?
No. People always say that they get to know a lot more about me. And I think people enjoy our energy, and I think you enjoy. I want to actually say that I was invited here today. I'm looking into the camera, speaking to the viewers.
Like a news presenter.
I was invited here today because JC said that he wanted a fun podcast. And there have been comedians. Skulk has been on the show, and I think that Skulk should know that of everyone that's been interviewed, I was the one that was brought back for some comedy.
Yes.
And yeah, do with that what you will, Skulk.
Yes. Skulk was not available. So basically it's like I told you, I've now done, so I think it started with Zuleika Patel, which was obviously like, it was, I'm not saying it wasn't enjoyable, but it wasn't a fun episode. It was like a political, difficult episode to get through, with a lot of debate and so on. Then that episode did super, super well, incredibly well. Then I got a lot of people asking me that they want me to do one about the Israel-Palestine conflict. So I then contacted a few different people. Actually, I started out contacting the head of the South African Zionist Foundation.
Sure.
And he was like, yeah, he's keen to do the podcast. Then I got Dr. Quraisha Suleiman, who obviously represents the Palestinian interests. When I then let him know that I got her as well, because I told him that I was going to try and get someone from the other side, but when he found out that it was her, I don't know if he knew about her beforehand, but she's like got a PhD in this stuff. She's like a clever woman. So when he found out about her, he was like, I'm not doing this anymore. So he pulled out, which was a little bit upsetting, because I was like, I felt like I wanted to give both sides a fair representation. So he pulled out. So I then delayed the podcast by like a week and a half, and I put on my social media, I put on the meme page, and then on my personal page, I put up, listen, our guy for pro-Israel dropped out. If anyone wants to, make a suggestion for another guest to fill that position, let me know. So I I got a few responses back, but they weren't like, "Hi, I'd like to be on the podcast," or "I know this person who." It was like, "Oh, you should try contacting this activist." So I ended up contacting a bunch. Like, I sent out messages. I was like, I explained the whole situation. I was like, "I'm doing a podcast. This is what it's about, blah, blah, blah." And I got 0 responses at all, which was a little bit sad.
Sure.
But then Dr. Suleiman, she asked me, "Listen, do you still want someone else to come on?" And I said, "Yeah, but I was really hoping to get someone who's pro-Israel on." She said, "Okay, well, I've got this guy, Bram Hanekom. He's a guy that I know, and I didn't actually know who he was, but apparently he's like a regular commentator on these sorts of things. He's on the news regularly, talking about various oppressive situations across the world, and he was like on standby until the day. And on the day, I had yet to find anyone. I'd asked twice on social media for people to send me suggestions. I'd contacted a bunch of people from their suggestions and also out of this, in my own research. Nobody responded. So then I said, call Bram, tell him he can join us. And I'm glad that I did that, because he ended up being a really interesting guy. Yeah. And a person who I haven't found the right topic yet, but I hope that I'll get to do an in-person podcast with him alone sometime. Because I think he's lucky to chat with. But yeah, anyway, so I did the Zuleika one, which was about race relations and racism. Then I did the Israel-Palestine one, which was about like oppression and war crimes and geopolitics. Then I just now, yesterday, released another one that I did with Asad Sharif, who's a political satirist, with regards to the refugee crisis in Europe. So I've done like 3 hectic ones in a row now, and there was a big break between 2 of them, but still done like 3 hectic ones in a row. And I was telling Kwena now, I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos from a guy who basically said, I'm gonna like butcher this now, but he gave a long explanation about why I should, instead of trying to just continually chase the podcasts that do best, which are the controversial ones, why don't I instead do the podcast that I want to do and let the show grow organically from there, and let the audience grow organically from there? Because what's going to end up happening if I just say, okay, I am now Jordan Peterson, I'm going to now be doing debate after debate after debate. Either I'm going to become that person as an individual, I'm going to become that person, which I don't want to be, or I'm going to continually be pretending to be that person for a very long period of time. Not that I don't enjoy the debates, but I feel like the debate should be sprinkled in with some really enjoying, relaxing content.
Yeah.
So that's why, Skulk, unfortunately, not available. So I had to go to my second choice, Kwena.
I didn't know I was on standby.
And yeah, I called Kwena. I said, I called him twice in one day, didn't answer his phone. Then I called him again the next day, he didn't answer his phone. Then he phoned me back 4 days later, just showing how important I am. He phoned me back 4 days later.
I called back though. I did
call back. I picked up the phone. I was busy. I said, Kwena, I'm so sorry. I can't call you right. I can't speak right now. Can I talk in 5 minutes? He's like, yeah. Just call me back. I called him back. He did not answer the phone that time either. So I ended up just sending him a voice note and just waiting until he responded. But I suppose it all worked out in the end, because here we are.
No, I told you to call back before 7.
I called back before 7.
To be fair, like 15 minutes before 7. But I was entering an intense game of Warzone. And
whoa. So you were sitting playing Warzone.
I was playing Warzone.
You saw my phone call and you just thought, like, fuck that. I'm not picking up JC's call.
I've been trying to increase my kill death ratio, and so I needed to be on the zone. So I need those 15 minutes beforehand just to focus.
It's important stuff.
Yeah, but we're here. We're here.
We're doing it. One of the reasons why I specifically wanted to talk to you, I've been listening to a podcast recently. I've switched over to listening to this as like the main podcast I'm listening to lately. It's called The Basement Yard, which was actually the first podcast I ever heard of in my life. Because when I was like 14, 15, I was doing I was in a high school, and there was this guy called Joe Santagato who posted videos called Idiots of the Internet.
Sure.
And he posted like one every week where he was just discussing funny stuff he's seen on the internet. And it was, it was the funniest thing we had ever seen as like 9th or 10th grade kids. So funny. And he would always at the end of the video say, right, thanks for watching. Check out my podcast. It's called The Basement Yard. And at that time, I didn't know what a podcast was. I was definitely not on any podcasting platforms. And I seem to remember there was even one time where this was before they were doing video, if I'm not mistaken. But I went on YouTube and I searched for The Basement Yard and I didn't find anything. And I just gave up. Fast forward years later, I start listening to Joe Rogan's podcast. I start listening to Jordan Peterson's podcast. And what's the guy's name? He's like a Russian guy who specializes in artificial intelligence. A lot of people... No. No, a lot of people know who this guy is. His name will come to me now. But I listened to a bunch. And then now recently I was like, yes, maybe I should check out that Basement Yard that I heard about years ago. And it's still going.
Sure.
Still regularly uploading. So I went and it's so brilliant. And it's literally just these two guys, they're cousins. And they just chat shit for 4 hours.
4 hours.
No. 4 hours.
Oh.
I had a stutter. They just talk shit, and it's a good time. They talk about like the most ridiculous stuff. Like today, I was actually on my way to pick you up. I was listening to one where they were talking about ghosts, talking about whether they believe in ghosts and their ghost encounters and that sort of stuff. And obviously, the way they talk about it, the way they tell the stories, just make it really funny.
Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I do believe in ghosts.
You do believe in ghosts?
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
I don't believe in ghosts. Why do you believe in ghosts?
We're
now stealing the topic
I've
from
had experiences.
from the Basement Yard.
I've had experiences inside my life.
Mm-hmm.
There was, must have been 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And
it's a brilliant time for memory retention.
Yeah, no. 4 or 5, and I couldn't swim. There were these Colombian kids that stayed inside the same complex as us. So I used to like take rides on their backs in the pool. And one day I thought I was getting off the back onto a step, went straight down. I remember jumping up, gasping for air, going down, jumping up, gasping for air, going down. And eventually I didn't come up. And I clearly remember seeing my body floating inside the water. I believe that my spirit
like
left
an out
my
of body
body
experience.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, for that reason, I definitely I believe in ghosts.
So most people, when you ask, do you believe in ghosts, and they tell a story, they would say, yes, I've seen a ghost. Your experience is, yes, I was a ghost for a brief moment.
No, me, I've you see, it also depends on what you're calling it. For example, I believe in ancestors, you know, and me, I've seen ancestors. There was a point in time where I was a bit nervous that I was going to get the calling. And for about a week, 2 weeks, I'd wake up and there'd be literally a person, always be like 2-3 in the morning, a person kneeling at the edge of my bed. And I panicked, like me, I really panicked. I went to my dad. I was like, look, Dad, I think I might be getting the calling. And I was like, me, I'm enjoying my political career.
What's the life. When you say the calling, what is that? Like the calling to death?
No. To becoming a Sangoma. You go, and you might not need to practice. Some people get the calling and you go through the initiation, but you don't practice. Other people have to practice. And so for me, I was like, no. Like, I grew up in Fairy Glen. I'm enjoying my politics. I'm enjoying my life. I was like, this can't be me,
Yeah.
So my dad said, no, you must just negotiate with them, So
if you became a Sangoma, I would have you on that evening, like with your full, your what I imagine a Sangoma. But by the way, this podcast is listened to mostly by Americans and some people in the UK and Europe. So let's just explain. The Sangoma is an African witch doctor.
Yeah, spiritual.
It's like a
doctor,
traditional
doctor.
holistic, spiritual witch doctor that is. It's obviously, there's none of that in my European culture, but there's a lot of that in African cultures and so on. So I actually know very, very little about it. So this is how it works. You get the calling from your ancestors.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk me through it.
Then what generally happens is that the ancestors will tell you who your who the person that's going to train you needs to be. And then you'll go to that person, and then you'll go through the initiation process, and it can take any amount of time. There's some people that it's a few months, some people that it's a few years. It's not necessarily that you are consistently there, and often then you have to give things up. But as I said, then at the end of it, maybe you become a sangoma. You don't necessarily become a sangoma, but I was very clear that, look, this is not the route that I want to take. And so my dad said, have a negotiation. So one night I woke up and I had a young negotiation. And then
what does this mean when you say you had a negotiation? What does that sound like?
I sat up in bed and I said, look, my dad had coached me. So
yes.
I said, look, I feel that I'm contributing to the family name through my political work. You said this out loud too? Yes. No, it was a one-way conversation, but I said what I needed to say. So I said that, and then I'm going to get to a crazy story afterwards. So I said that now I feel like I'm building the family name. I feel like I'll be more useful doing this, so please, I don't want the calling. And then never again did I wake up with anyone at the edge of my bed. But the craziest time, right, is that the craziest time is that I went to sleep the one night, right. Fast asleep, wake up, my whole apartment is clean. Now, I've told you, I'm a very, very messy person. My clothes were all in the closet. There was nothing on the floor. And on my couch downstairs, I have this blanket from my dad's place. It was folded very beautifully on the couch with even the corner flipped like this and a nice little pillow at the edge. And I don't remember doing any of it, and that's where I panicked. That's where I went to my dad and I said, "My man, something wrong is happening."
If I went to bed, because I hate having a messy, dirty apartment, and it's been that way now. Remodeling this aquarium.
I was about to say, I saw your bedroom. I went to your bedroom just now.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So, it's been a few weeks now since my apartment has been perfectly clean. This is the best it's looked in a few weeks, and the reason for that is because of this aquarium, which I used to have a 300 liter. Then I had my mates over one weekend, and we replaced it with the 450. The 450 liter, and then but it came with a lot of like T's and C's, because we had to put in new soil, which then created mud because I was a stupid idiot with regards to how I did it. Then a few days later, when I felt like I was done, and I was so happy to be done, I sent Tasita a message. I'm like, yes, I'm just so I'm glad I can just enjoy this hobby again, as opposed to having to work intensely every day to try and get it to work. Then one day I left to go to Midrand to go have a meeting with some of the guys who work at my aquarium company. I came home and the floor here where we're sitting right now is just flooded, like about 0.5 centimeter of water across the entire kitchen, down the hall, that way as well. Flooded, like up to where the TV is. This whole area is just flooded. So immediately I'm thinking, like, what's just happened? Because theoretically, like, that should not be possible.
Yeah,
so I quickly take off these cabinet covers, and I see that the aquarium at the bottom, the sump filter, the 300 liter aquarium that's sitting under my aquarium, has cracked at the bottom. And water had obviously gone through the crack over the course of half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever, and just slowly filled my apartment. Now, luckily, there are some fish in there. Luckily, when I got here, there was still about 5 centimeters of water left. So the fish were still alive and fine. So I managed to quickly scoop them out, put them in a bucket. And then, I can't just refill the tank. So the next 3 days consisted of me calling the tank building guys in Edenveld, quickly build me a new one. That's $1,000 down the drain, just like that. And then installing these new aquariums. So by the time I finally finished, which was the day before yesterday, I was so relieved to just get everything over. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, if I woke up on one of those nights where this whole desk was, or this whole table was full of aquarium stuff and silicone that I needed to scrape off, and there's like paper towels everywhere, and it just looks like a shit show. If I one day woke up and came out here and it was just perfectly clean, I would do nothing to make that stop ever. I would continue taking advantage of that for the rest of my life.
So I shouldn't have gone into negotiations.
You should definitely have said,
I'm still thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it.
Give me 2 months.
Please, next time, dishwasher also. Give me some time and I'll get back to you. Extending it for as long as possible.
Yeah, no, given the fact that I don't clean, in hindsight, I see your point. And it probably would have been the best route to go.
You have to think strategically. You were bragging to me earlier, big picture, got a strategic mind. I think long term, that was a very short term decision to say, my apartment's clean, this needs to stop right now.
I was panicking,
Okay.
So sometimes strategy goes out the window when you have a high heart rate.
Yeah, I see. So yeah, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in ancestors or gods or anything like that. What I do believe in, and I'm like full on tinfoil hat about this, is aliens. Like 100% do believe in aliens. When I was a kid, also I was like second grade, which again, like as soon as someone starts to tell you a story and it's like before high school, then you think, okay, his story's probably bullshit. Like, how good is your memory really back then? But this is a thing that I remember clearly, so maybe it's true. I think it is. But one night I was so my bedroom had a window that faced the swimming pool. So the swimming pool was just outside, and I had these blinds. So this one night I was busy sleeping, and my bed faces the window, and the blinds were closed, and it was pitch black outside, as it usually is. And now also something to keep in mind is that there's no visibility to any road because there were high walls. So the story I'm about to tell is not like, a car just made a weird sound and turned. That's not it. So I was laying in bed one night and I started to hear a weird engine noise. But it was like a proper sci-fi. It was like, it was like it wasn't like a car engine. And I open my eyes and I see light coming through my blinds, they're almost completely closed, so coming through. And the way that the light moves is that it moves from shining straight down. So clearly the source of light was very high in the sky, like 20, 30 meters, down to shining at window level, like quite quickly, like within about a second and a half. And this was accompanied by a sound. It was like, okay? So then the light's now like straight, almost at eye level. And I just hear it's making an ambient noise as well. It's like so I'm sitting there. I sit up immediately because this makes no sense at all. There might be it's not like there's a car that it's just doesn't make sense. There's nothing there that could create this sound or this light. So I stood up and I start walking towards the blinds. And before I get there, like within that 3-second gap, it goes, and it just, again, like exact reversal. It just went straight up into the sky again. So in my head, what's happened was this alien craft has come down. It came down. It hovered above the swimming pool for let's say 8 or 9 seconds while just, checking out what's what. And then it went back up.
Sure.
Like quick and easy, just checking out what is this body of water? I wonder what this is for. Come down. Now, it could have been, I'm a logical guy. So now I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's like, what if it's one of, those crank flashlights?
Yeah.
They also make a sound kind of like that. They're like, so now I'm thinking, what if my father was outside and he was checking something and he cranked it and it went, and then suddenly the light, but that would make sense, I suppose. But I spoke to my family about it the next day. I was like, listen, some crazy shit happened last night. And they didn't know what I was talking about. So either someone was messing with me, which to do to a second grade kid is a bit messed up anyway, or aliens visited my house.
There's a third option as well. It could have been a peeping Tom with a drone.
It could have, but this is I was in second grade, so this is 2008.
An advanced peeping Tom with a drone.
The American military peeping Tom with a drone. That, if that happened today, I would say guaranteed drone 100%. But drones were not a thing then yet. or at least if they were a thing, they weren't available to the public just yet. So maybe, who knows? But then again, if you want to logically explain mine, let me try a crack at yours. So you're telling me you wake up to a person at the foot of your bed every night for weeks, and then your apartment is clean and left. I think you just had a roommate you didn't know about. A homeless person came into your apartment, stayed there for several nights. At night, he went to go sit by your bed and he was looking at you. And I was thinking like, yes, I'm so grateful. This guy wakes up, he looks at me, and yet he doesn't chase me out. This guy's so cool. And then one night, the homeless man is sitting there and he's just contemplating like, yes, this apartment's so great. I'm so happy. And then you wake up and you start saying, I don't want this, man. I'm doing such great work as a politician. I don't want this. And he then thought, this guy's lost his mind. I'm just gonna clean up and go.
Yeah.
And that was that. I reckon.
Oh, that's where the cleanup happened.
Yes.
At least I'm leaving respectfully.
Yes. Because he was like, I've been using your facilities for a while. This guy lives like worse than I do. Let me just clean up this place and I'll go.
A homeless man living worse. I'm living worse than a homeless man. It's tough. Yeah. No, to the aliens though. Like me, I also believe in aliens. I don't know if I necessarily believe in, flying saucers, and potentially visitations could happen.
Well, Joe Rogan on his podcast, he always talks about it, and it makes perfect sense. He says, we humans, as advanced as we are now starting to rely more and more on unmanned craft, right? So, for example, if you look at the military, the majority of the planes now are unmanned. So they are taught by AI, and they can also be controlled remotely. They're taught how to behave. So if you've ever seen those massive, I think they're called Falcon or Hawk or something, those big spy jets that are like pitch black, and they fly at super high altitudes, and they can hover in place, and they cost like $20 billion each. Those things are unmanned completely, which obviously has a lot of advantages. So Joe Rogan always says, if aliens are coming, quote unquote, to visit us, they're not going to send people, or they're not going to send living beings to go visit that planet. Why would they need to? They just send a little unmanned craft, quickly just take a scope, see what's what, and go off. And if there's multiple civilizations that are coming to visit and so on, they'll all have their own unmanned stuff. Like when we get to the point where we're saying, okay, we can very easily visit planets, check out what's up, we're not going to risk human lives, Now, on the other hand, we could be in a situation where these people are like the Guardians of the Galaxy. These aliens, they're adventurers and explorers. It's like Star Trek. It's a privately owned spacecraft operated by a team of adventurers. That makes more sense. That's like, okay, there's an explanation as to, number one, why they're here is because they're exploring, and number two, why would they send aliens in their craft is because it's their craft. It's not like the alien planet as a whole sending out explorer drones. It's like, oh, this is my ship, I'm gonna go explore the galaxy. That makes more sense. Yes, exactly.
For the vibes. Okay.
So I get that. But you say you believe in aliens also.
No, definitely. I think, like I said, I don't necessarily think the whirling UFO and things like that, but I mean the universe is huge, and in my mind, to say that Earth inside this infinite universe is the only planet that's capable of life is ridiculous. Whether we'll ever interact with these alien life forms, I have no idea.
That would be quite cool. But I mean, if you think about the way the world's going right now, Afghanistan has just been taken by a terrorist organization. We've just gone into a 2-year-long pandemic for a virus, and no one can agree on whether or not we're overreacting. We've got all of our money and our information is in the sky. It's like all of our information exists on this internet that no one can touch. You can only really interact with it a little bit. Like, it's a weird time right now to be alive. I think that if aliens came down and they landed somewhere in Guatemala, and someone got some solid footage of them coming off and scanning things, I think people would just be like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, not sure if there was ever a time it would be now.
Like my history teacher in high school, she used to have this theory, because we spoke about aliens in her class once, and she solidly believed in aliens, and she said that she believes the governments of the world believe that a visitation that they cannot deny is imminent. Like we are overdue for aliens to come down, and everyone sees them, and it's undeniable. So what she says is that they have been influencing pop culture to make sure we're making more and more movies about aliens, more and more, cultural things. Like Marvel could be an example of that, where it's like, oh, all of these people come from different planets, so that we can get people used to the idea, so that when it does happen, inevitably, people won't freak out.
Yeah.
Which I think could be, I mean, I don't know how much influence the US government has over Hollywood execs, but I mean, could it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
It's
Maybe that's
possible.
what Area 51 is for. The aliens are chilling
Maybe
there.
it's a movie studio.
Yeah, no, it could
that's what they do there.
It's where they shot the moon landing.
Yes, exactly. I heard the other day, who said this? I think it was Sean Locke. Do you know who Sean Locke is?
No.
Sean Locke is a British comedian, or was a British comedian. He died last week. And he was a regular on a show called 8 out of 10 Cats. Does Countdown, which is a wordy name, but it's Jimmy Carr's show. Okay. So it's a panel show. He's almost always there, Sean Locke, and then another guy called John Richards. He's always there as well. And then they have like 2 to 4 other comedians from around the world, and sometimes not even comedians, just like funny people who are somewhat publicly known will come on, and then they'll play a few little games, and they'll ask questions, and they'll just chat, and it's a jolly old time. So Sean Locke has now recently passed away from cancer, and loads of his clips are getting a lot of attention on YouTube right now. So BBC and Channel 4 have now put together these extended montages, or not montages, but like collections of their favorite clips. So you'll get like a 25-minute video that's all Sean Locke's best jokes and best comments on the show and so on.
Sure.
I completely forgot where I was going with this.
I think you were going to say maybe you're going to fake your death, and then...
No.
And so then this podcast is just going to shoot up.
So Sean Locke said something about aliens, and now I've done this perfect setup to tell the story, and now I've completely forgotten about it.
Look, you went the scenic route, and we enjoyed it.
Yes. Well, now at least we know who Sean Locke is.
Yeah,
Sean Locke's just brilliant. He's absolutely excellent. But yeah, it's out of my mind. I'll get back to it now. Nana, you'll be mid-story, and I'll be like, wait, I got it. Let me tell you about the Sean Locke story.
Sean Locke.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting time to be alive right now, where things happen all the time that seem unbelievable. But the thing is that the more these things happen, the more regular they feel. I was walking in the mall nearby me, Eastgate. I was walking in Eastgate the other day, and it was quite early in the morning, because I usually schedule my haircuts for like 8 when the mall opens. I go cut my hair, and it was very quiet because the restaurants and stuff hadn't really opened yet. And I was walking through the mall with my mask on, and I was supposed to get vaccinated the day before, but I couldn't go, so now I need to actually go like sometime this week as a walk-in to go get vaccinated. But I was walking through the mall, and I realized like a lot of these people will be vaccinated at the moment. Over the course of the next few weeks, more or most of them will start to be vaccinated, and since the moment those vaccines landed on South African soil, a countdown clock began for the day when our president comes on and says, right guys, it's over. Take the masks off, life goes back to normal. And I was just thinking, like, I can't even imagine, and there will be some people who will have experienced this, who are watching this, so please do let us know how it feels. But I can't imagine the energy that everyone's going to have on that day after Cyril's come on and said, you guys can pop your masks off, go on, live your life. No more restrictions. Everything is back to normal. I'm very excited.
I think it's going to be weird though.
It is going to be weird.
Like, I was thinking about it also the other day. I've become so accustomed to it. I remember the first few months I'd constantly walk down the stairs and be like, oh my gosh, I forgot my mask.
Yes,
go back upstairs. But that doesn't happen anymore. Never. It's like, just like I'll take my wallet, I'll take my mask.
It becomes part of your routine. It's like your wallet or your phone. It's like, you know where it is all the time. You keep it in a certain space. Like on my car, I have a little thing that I mount my phone on, and my mask just hangs on that. So every time I go to a place, I take it off. When I get back in my car, I put it back so it never gets lost. It's there all the time. I have spares for people who are traveling with me and so on. And you're right. Like, it's completely normal. I forget that I have it on most of the time. It feels very normal. I'm gonna have to learn to stop mouthing words to myself in public, because I'll be walking around the mall and I know no one can see me, and then I'll be like, all right, so I'm gonna go and if I don't have a mask on, that's gonna look really weird.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm gonna have
Next
to unlearn.
You're angry at someone, you can't be like this.
Yes,
I'm
gonna have to relearn hiding my facial expressions.
Yeah, no, and I really do think it's gonna take time.
Yeah.
And I've actually also questioned, like, I mean, you look like China after SARS. There's still a lot of people that wear masks.
I think we should have that.
Yeah, I wonder if there's still going to be a large amount of people that say, what, actually, I'm going to keep this on.
So, in Japanese and Chinese culture, you are expected to wear a mask if you feel sick. And that's how they prevent mass outbreaks of flus and common colds and stuff, is that when you're having a bit of cough and you're not feeling good, you put a mask on. So they all have masks. And now we all have masks. The whole world has masks in a cupboard somewhere now. So the thought is that, after this, will we learn something? Because, for example, I was talking to a doctor the other day about like flu numbers and stuff. So, for example, the US, I can't remember the exact numbers, but they have like a certain amount of people who die from the flu every year, pneumonia, right? And if I'm not mistaken, the old number was like, it was either like 40,000 or 400,000 people per year who die from pneumonia. And now, for the year end 2020, it was something like 2,400 people. It was like nothing, because their entire winter was masked up.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, obviously there are other factors as well, like, people aren't as close to each other, there's not as many packed social situations, but the masks definitely played a role. So now you think, okay, if we could go to a society, or if we could all agree that from now on, when you feel sick, you're going to wear a mask, I think that would be great. Because then, every year, I'm one of those people, I never get sick. I get sick once a year, and it knocks me off my feet. I'm sick for like a week. I cannot move. I'm like dead, and then I'm good for the rest of the year. If I could skip that every year, that would be excellent.
That would be heaven.
But now there's the follow-up question, right? So you said you've watched The Office, right? So remember that episode where Dwight said that the worst thing you can do for your immune system is to coddle it, and that if the company really cared about us, they'd set up hand desanitizing stations filled with dirt and bacteria and fecal matter, and we could all just go desanitize our hands to strengthen our immune systems. I mean, it's a joke, but it's got a point. Like, the more you coddle your immune system and make sure that you stay away from potential illness, the more weak it becomes. I don't really know what the answer is to that.
The only thing I know is I don't want to put fecal matter on my hands. That doesn't sound like a vibe. But I suspect, I don't get sick. But I think it was because as a child I just did, the most nonsense things. I was not hygienic at all, licking my hands and eating grass, and so I suspect from a young age, that's where you can build it up. But there'll be a part of me that I think there'll be certain situations going forward, maybe concerts, just generally places where there are large crowds, where I might still wear a mask even when we've eventually moved past this COVID-19 nightmare.
That would be quite interesting to see if people still wear masks when they're in really crowded situations. I reckon I'd be very happy to wear a mask when I'm sick. But I hope it's not something like I'm the weird guy who's doing that. I hope it's like it becomes a normal thing. I'm going to try push for it. I'm going to talk about it more often. I'm going to post about it. I'm going to see if I can get people to agree with me. I'll get some masks made that say, I don't have COVID, I'm just sick. And just give it to people. I'll give them out for free. And then on the inside, will be a little pamphlet that explains, yes, from now on, please wear a mask when you're not feeling well. I'll just give one to as many people as I can, and hopefully I can start something, like start a cultural phenomenon.
Talking about the one weird guy, remember in the beginning of the pandemic, when we were still around UP, there was this guy, and at that time, the information consistently changed in the beginning. So in the beginning, health minister came out, said, don't wear a mask.
Yeah.
They said that what's going to happen is that it's on surfaces. So if you're wearing a mask, the process of taking a mask on and off and adjusting a mask means you're more likely to touch your mouth, your eyes, and that then you're more likely to get COVID. And I remember I was walking around campus and there was one guy that was chilling there with this KN95 mask, and I was like, this idiot, like, doesn't he know he's more likely to get the virus now? Then fast forward 2 months, all of us are wearing masks.
But I think it's because the information that came from the WHO was so up. It was like, oh, the masks work. Then they said, no, they don't work. In fact, they make it worse. Yeah. And it's like, oh, they do, but they do work, and but you have to have a certain type. I think that a lot of people lost trust in not only the World Health Organization, but also, governments, and then government bodies like the United Nations and so on. People lost a lot of faith in them because they lied. And it's not lying like they withheld information from us. It's lying in the sense that they pretended they knew more than they did. So, for example, when we started off with the masks, as soon as you, as an official spokesman, contradict yourself, you lose credibility instantly. That's why news outlets hate when they have to print something to say, sorry, we were wrong that other time, because then the question is, well, if you were wrong then, surely you can be wrong now, And the situation is just, it's complicated because they came out, they said, right, these are the way that things should work now. We've done the research. This is how it works. Then a week or two later, they say, actually, not quite. This is how it should work now. And I'm thinking, if they had just come out at the start and been more human, like if they had just said, listen, we don't really know how this works yet. Right now, this is the best info we have available, but we're not sure. We're going to keep updating you over time. We are still doing the research. These are the people who are working on this. This is specifically what they are doing. These are the types of tests we're running. And as soon as I know, I will tell you. But what it ended up being is people who were really not sure about things, pretending as if they were very sure, which can work if that ends up being the correct information, because if they later say, yes, we've always said masks, then people will say, oh, well, they were really on the ball. 2 days after this thing happened, they were saying exactly what we should do, and they were right. But now they were one side up, one side down. They were going back and forth between opinions, and later on, even normal people who don't have any political opinions could see, these people don't actually know what's going on. And I think that was a big mistake on their behalf.
I think it was a tough one because I think, the research did keep changing, but obviously the more time you have to do research, the more information comes out. And so they were making decisions based off the research they had at the time. I think that the real issue was less the changing information and more sort of the fake news pandemic that we have at the moment, because I think they rode on that a lot, and created distrust, and that was one of the reasons why, it's saying that no, the vaccine hasn't been approved yet, and no, they've said this, then they've said that, then and so for me, I think the worrying thing that came out of this, or the danger that was highlighted by COVID-19, really is this culture of disinformation that we have through fake news. I think that was a mess, and I mean even now, I see so many anti-vaxxers,
Yes, you see them all the time.
You see them everywhere.
Have you ever seen when News 24 or some news outlet posts anything about the vaccine? Even now, recently, a girl that I've had on the podcast, Lexi Munzelia, she owns a restaurant, and she went and she posted, if you come in, it's like, when there's elections and everyone gets that little ink spot on their fingernail, if you go, some restaurants will say, if you come show us your ink spot, you'll get a free cup of coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
So she's now done this thing where she says, if you come in and show us your vax slip, you get 10% off your whole order, right? Which sounds great. You need to put on a hazmat suit before you open those comments. Like, you go into the comments and people are like, you are discriminating against us. How dare you remove my right to choice? And I was talking to Alma. You know Alma?
Yeah.
Alma Ekop. I was talking to her recently, and she's finishing up her master's in law now, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. But she's big in the legal space. And she said to me that this is going to be an incredibly interesting year for the next while, because we've now got two competing forces. Right to admission. So, for example, an airline saying that you have to have a vaccine to travel with them. That's right of admission versus right to choice, freedom of choice. People saying, I have the right to refuse this medical service if I don't want it. I'm going to not take the vaccine. So now it's like these people are going to cry discrimination, and these people are going to cry, freedom to admit who they want, right of admission, etc., etc. So it is going to be extremely interesting to see what happens, and it's going to be a divisive time. What I'm hoping is that the majority of people who are sensible and who are vaccinated will be the people who are more prolific in the media and so on. Because what would be terrible is if people who were fearful of the vaccines got stuck in echo chambers where they are getting very little information. It's sort of like the left versus right debate in the US, where if you're a right-wing person, you can watch news channels that tell you only right-wing things. Yeah. You can go to places that support only right-wing ideas, etc., etc. You get stuck in an echo chamber and you become increasingly extreme. If we now have that same situation where anti-vax people can go watch news outlets that are biased towards anti-vax principles, and you can go on Facebook groups where there's only anti-vax people, all your friends are anti-vax, what is going to happen is those people are going to be increasingly pushed towards the outskirts of trust in all sorts of institutions, talking about medicine, but also talking about government, schooling, supply chain management, etc., 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 which is never good. You want people to try and have balanced opinions and not align too strongly with either side or the other, because then they can still make a decision. If you're a super far right person, you're not even going to consider an issue because you already know what you should think. You already know what your people's opinion is. But if you're in the middle and you're presented with an issue, you can think, okay, let me think about this, and then let me make a decision. So, I think it's going to be a polarizing time for the entire planet, which I think is a problem.
Yeah, I've said I think we must just create separate communities. You can have London, and then you can have like Little London with the non-vax people. We build airports; they can all fly, or we can have terminals in airport. If I want to be a non-vax person in Little London and I need to do business in South Africa, I can fly to Little Johannesburg, where there's also their little non-vax community, and we allow them to.
Some people in South Africa a long time ago tried to set up something similar, and it didn't work out.
That was very different. We're saying if you want your vaccine, you can come to Big Joburg. There's no. You're not stuck where you are.
So what would you say? So you're vaccinated?
I'm vaccinated. I was literally
first in line.
I was there at 7:30 in the morning. I never wake up that early. I was there, got my jab, took a picture as us youngsters do
on social media.
Yeah, no. It's great. Let me tell you, this thing is that literally. So I went with friends, so they took a picture of me. My friends took a picture, but this was at Sammy Marks. I had said, "Is it fine if I get a picture taken?" The nurse didn't know that I had friends there. The nurse literally shouts out, "Picture," and someone comes to take a picture. So it's like there's so many people that want pictures taken that they actually had someone there that was taking pictures.
Yeah,
more people
specifically for that job.
So they would literally just shout "picture," and then someone would run. Where's your phone? I was like, wow.
Yes,
they prepared for the millennials.
But I think that's exactly the thing, because now you get a polarizing situation where the people on the one side are being pushed I mean, anti-vax is already a pretty fringe idea. Okay, so it's like already, it's kind of like, you're not like tinfoil hat, 5G causes autism. You're just a bit further away from what would be considered normal. But then within the, normal group, you now get certain people who are being pushed the other way, which is, I trust everyone all the time. I trust that the government has my best interest in mind 24/7 all the time. And if you say something against the government, you're insert your insult here. So it's what we're witnessing is the death of critical thinking. Because what you really need is a population of people who, when they encounter a situation, they can take all of the information. They can say, okay, I hear what you have to say. Let's make a solid decision. I don't care about my affiliations. I don't care about my political opinions. I'm going to deal with this situation as it comes. But unfortunately, when you push people to fringe communities, it's a cycle. It's like the social network we chatted about on the podcast last time. It's like you get pushed more and more, and it's like a circle, right? Imagine it's like a circle, and everyone starts at the middle. And if you get pushed a little bit to one side, you're going to start rolling faster and faster and faster, and eventually by the time you get to the very fringe, you're halfway off already. You're gone. Like there's no getting you back at that point.
It's a very good analogy.
So what cheers. So what you have to do as a person, if you want to be someone who can have opinions that are taken seriously, is you need to play this balancing act. You need to say, I don't care whether this decision makes me look more left or more right. I'm going to make this decision based on its merit. And if you keep doing that, it's like treading water. You'll just keep, push a little right, push a little left, you're in the middle. And there's a Afrikaans saying or phrase which is draadsitter. I don't know if you've heard it. So directly translated, it means fence sitter, like someone who sits on the fence. I'm on the fence, exactly that. Is that
but they probably mean it negative.
Yeah, it's negative in Afrikaans. Like if you're a draadsitter, it means that you are indecisive.
Yeah, you must have no spine.
Yeah, but I think that being decisive but yet being able to remain centralist are not mutually exclusive.
Agreed.
You should be able to be decisive on each individual decision without being prejudiced, without deciding I am going to align with this way of thinking always, no matter what.
No, I don't know. I agree with that 100%, and it's why even in the political space I'd say that I'm centrist. It's more difficult. But I think that's where critical engagement and critical thinking shines the brightest, because it's very easy if you're far left to say this is the route we're going, and as you said, you've got that echo chamber, and it's easy if you're far right to say this is the route we're going. But to sit in the center, one, you're always gonna make someone angry. So if you say, no, I think actually we need to move a bit to the left here, the right is gonna come after you. Move a bit to the right, the left comes after you. But I think that's where we need to be as a people.
But I mean, who's more spineless? The person who is not picking a side and is knowing that he's always going to make someone angry with his decisions, but he does it because he thinks it's the right thing to do? Or the person who allows their umbrella organization or opinion or whatever to dictate the decisions for them? I mean, it's very easy if you're far right or far left to say, I know what to do, this is very obvious and clear to me. But what you're actually doing is you're ceding that decision to other people. You're saying, okay, well, if the left believes this, I believe this. And I know people like this. I've had podcasts with people like this. I've had a lot of chats with people who, like, you can tell them anything. They don't, they don't. And this is not me saying that it's my, duty or my right to try and convince other people of my opinions, and if they don't agree with me, then that means they're crazy. I mean, you can go and you can watch these podcasts. The Zuleika episode is an excellent example of where I was chatting with her for a long time, and I tried to come at her opinions from many, many different angles to try and put her in certain dilemmas in which her opinion doesn't quite make sense. And regardless, she would tell me you're taking this out of context, or you're not understanding, or, she had a long list of things that she would say to justify why, even though her opinion doesn't make sense in that situation, it still makes sense. I've now lost the name, but there's this ancient philosopher, Greek philosopher, I think it was Socrates, not 100% sure though. He had this idea that the oldest standing ideas within a community are usually the best. Okay, so his theory was as follows: if you have an idea and you put it out into the world, it's like you put out a rock into the world, and people who disagree with you are going to be throwing their own ideas at yours. Okay, so it's like throwing rocks at your rock. And when those two rocks collide through debate and discussion, one of those rocks is going to break and the other one's not going to break. And you keep throwing rocks, and then there's a new stronger rock, and it keeps going. So that happens thousands of times over the course of human history, and where we are now, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years after the first human ideas, we have some really good ones, because they've gone through a lot of scrutiny, and yet here they still are. Basic ideas like the ideas behind trade, or the ideas behind do not murder people.
Do not murder people.
Exactly. It's like, if you think about
that rock has stayed true.
Yeah, it's exactly like the idea don't murder people. It's a bad idea. Like, regardless of whether you believe it from a religious perspective or a moral perspective or a conscience, we all can agree it's a bad idea. Even if you're thinking logically, like, okay, but what if the guy's a dick? It's still a bad idea. There's going to be a lot of negative consequences to murdering someone for a bunch of different reasons that I don't need to go into.
Yeah.
Do not murder someone. Great idea. Okay?
Stays true.
Stays strong.
Until the purge.
You cannot have any counter argument to that. Like, if you have a counter argument to do not murder people, you're going to look like an idiot because it's a really good idea. So what that means is that the oldest standing ideas in our society are generally the strongest ones. So the core behind this principle is the idea that an idea should be challenged. If someone comes up with something and they say, right, I have decided that we need to stop drinking coffee. We need to stop drinking coffee now as a race, and we need to, or as a human race, we need to pass laws that ban coffee. That's your idea. If you don't ever talk to anyone about that, and you don't ever have anyone who likes you enough to challenge you honestly and respectfully about your idea, that idea is just going to stay there. And you're going to keep believing this bullshit for the rest of your life. If, however...
And I'd die, that coffee.
Right. If you go out and you say, listen guys, I actually reckon we should stop drinking coffee. People are going to be like, why? Then you have to explain your idea. And that's you throwing your rock. Here's my idea.
And then others must
say, well, here's my idea. And the two rocks collide, one of them will break. And now as a group, we have collectively agreed on the better of the two ideas. Okay? Because we've now seen the rocks hitting each other. We've seen what doesn't work. But now you get into a debate with someone who cannot or will not make any sessions. They will not give any, they won't give an inch. They will not compromise. And they also won't admit when they are wrong. They won't admit when their idea doesn't make sense. And what's now happening is that you're casting your rock at them and they're casting theirs at you, but they won't let them hit each other. They will, every time you throw a rock at them, they just catch it and chuck it away. They will not let their precious opinion be touched or challenged in any way. And unfortunately, what that leads to, if they can protect that idea over a long period of time and have it become accepted by many people, what you end up with is a very weak idea. And an idea that falls apart under even the lightest scrutiny. So even if I now, as a far left, ultra woke person, can think of, for example, the idea all white people are racist inherently. It just is what it is. All white people must be racist. And I start talking to people who agree with me and we go, yeah, all white people are racist. And anytime anyone tries to argue and go, actually, guys, that doesn't really, we go, racist. Don't talk to us. We don't want anything to do with you. You are leaving your idea unchallenged. Just like the immune system we spoke about earlier. The worst thing you can do for your idea is to coddle it. You know, you need it challenged. And that it just makes you a better and more well-rounded person. So I think, yes?
I would change the sort of visual of a rock or analogy of a rock. I think a better way, you said it was Plato. Who said this? Did you say Aristotle? Who said this?
I said Aristotle, but I'm not sure.
Okay, I don't want to pretend I'm smarter than one of the greatest philosophers. but I would almost change it to clay, because my only thing with a rock, right, is that it's then that concept that let's say I throw a rock and you throw a rock. That if one rock breaks but one stays true, it means that rock was 100% correct. And I think that the best ideas come from almost the merging of those rocks. So I'd say almost it's two people throwing clay. Some clay falls off from your rock, little bundle. Some clay falls off from my bundle, but then they come together and it's a new idea. And to me, that would be, perfect, because that's what I think engagement should be about, not a winner versus loser, better idea, worse idea, but figuring out, because I think, look, the left has valid points, the right has valid points, the center has valid points, but it's a question of how do we engage in a way that it's not a zero-sum game where someone wins, someone loses, but how do we move forward together?
I agree with you. I think that's excellent. The rock analogy was not Aristotle's. I added that.
Oh, you added the rock.
So clearly, I've now created this little clay thing, which was my idea, and I've given it to Kwena, and he's like, "Oh, it's all right, but let's chuck that rock analogy."
Yeah, you see,
and
now
let's
we've
make
created
it something
something.
better. Created something new. It's a good idea.
Yeah, no, I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of this too.
Yeah, this should be like a how-to sort of video. You should just cut this part and talk about how to create a new, as you said, stronger idea.
Yeah, 101, critical thinking 101.
Yeah.
I'll post it. I do that. I make little clips out of stuff. Oh, but yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive, man.
No, it really is. I was in New Zealand at the end of 2019 when I landed in Australia. I mean, there was just smoke, It was insane. We literally had to land through a cloud of smoke, take off in a cloud of smoke, go to New Zealand, and then to get back early January 2020, suddenly I'm wearing masks. It's just been an insane
that was a crazy
2 years.
I was sitting in the car with someone the other day, and I sort of, so they were talking about this. They were talking about that first week. It was like March 9th to March 15th or something, was that first week of COVID being really on our radar in South Africa. And they were talking about, they were like making fun and laughing, and they were saying, remember back in March, you had people who were like wearing mask, face shield, hairnet, gloves, long gloves, sanitizing every surface. And we laughed about it. And then I said, you know what? A mate of mine, a close friend of mine, his father died of COVID recently, like a month and a half ago. And I reckon if he knew that his father would still be around, if he wore the mask and the face shield and the gloves, he'd wear them every day because he'd know that his dad would have made it, And I think that it's something that a lot of people, when you go read those comments on Facebook and you see people making fun of people, and I think that we are overreacting as humans. We're overreacting a little bit to this virus, but it's because we're afraid. We don't want to lose the people that we love. There was a period we were coming back from Durban. We were driving back home during COVID. This was in one of those periods where it had settled down a bit, so interprovincial travel was allowed. And I've never seen my father really sick before. I mean, I suppose once or twice, but it was always just for a minute, and he was all right. So we were driving back from Durban, and after just a few minutes, I'm in a car with my girlfriend, and my family's in a car together. And my mother phones me and she says, listen, will you just pull over at the next rest stop? And I say, yeah, that's fine. What's going on? And she says, no, your father and I are just going to switch because he's not all right. And my father's 54. So I got to the rest stop and I went to speak to him, and he was just like, I couldn't believe that he had, in the space of the hour since breakfast, he had just crumbled into, and we drove home, and the entire drive home, I'm worried to death. And we get home that afternoon, and he went and he lay down in the bed, and he was just doing terribly, went for a COVID test. And that night, I went to bed, and I thought to myself, what if he dies? Like, what if my father dies? How am I, as the eldest of my brother and I, how am I going to pull this family back together? There was a moment where I was lying awake and I just thought, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready for this. I'm still studying. I don't have a proper job yet. I mean, I've got some businesses, but I don't feel stable enough yet. And in that moment, when I thought that there was a very real chance of my father dying and not making it to the next morning, if you had asked me then, will you wear a face shield and a hairnet and a glove that comes up to your elbows if you know your dad will be all right? I'd wear it every day for the rest of my life. And if my father ended up not having COVID, he had something else, flawed for a week and then all right again. But we did get COVID later. My whole family, we got it at the same time, probably 3-4 months after that. And again, my father was not all right. We got the oxygen machine just in case. We got the temperature gauge. I mean, my brother's extremely fit. He gyms every day for several hours. He was taking care of the rest of us, carrying medicine around and so on. And again, I was confronted with the mortality of my father. And it's very scary. So I feel that the lesson I took from that was perspective. Because suddenly, when you see someone being extremely paranoid, or when you see someone afraid of the virus, or even of the vaccine, I suppose, on Facebook, I remember the message that I got from my mate who told me, sorry guys, I can't come tonight. They've phoned my mother and said we must come say goodbye to my dad. He's not going to make it through the night. And I think about that a lot. And I think, maybe when people's family is on the line, we need to be a bit more patient. Yeah,
it's a tough one. But I think that's one of the scary things, and I think, but also at the same time, one of the beautiful things about COVID is that it did force us all to confront our mortality. You know? And I think in the context of that, I've seen it inside my own family. Thank goodness. I don't know how my dad didn't get COVID. He's 60. Diabetic, but I was literally out every single day. To this day, I told him shit. I was like, look, if you get it, I was like, you cannot blame anyone. And when you finally got a second dose, I was like, I just want you to know that this was God and not and not any of your doing.
This is that homeless man that came in the night. He protected the family.
But
sorry, do you want more water?
No, I'm all good.
Right, cheers.
But I think that in the same breath, because all of us were forced to face our mortality, and I think everyone was forced to question, what if my parents aren't always around, or what if my siblings, my friends, aren't always around. And I saw a lot of healing inside my family, family members that hadn't spoken in a long time, coming together, rifts, because it was that situation of, we always think that there'll be an infinite amount of time to deal with issues, an infinite amount of time to build relations, you know. You might say to yourself that, work is the most important thing. I'll have my retirement to spend time with my kids or grandkids, and that's not guaranteed, you know.
No.
And I think that it really put things into perspective for a lot of people, how important the now is, and how important it is to treasure those around you, because you have no idea how much time you'll have with them.
Yeah. No, but it's a scary thing. But, you know, I think that it's like you said, there's some good to be taken from this. People come together when things are stressful. And I think that it definitely fostered in me an appreciation of people, you know. Being able to know, okay, people might not be around forever. I've had a bit of a change of perspective again. I am hoping, this is now the first time I'm saying this on any public platform, I'm hoping to find an opportunity to move to the Netherlands next year. So I've been chatting with some of the people at my businesses and spoken about, especially the aquarium business now. We're an online aquarium retailer. So we sell plants, we sell fish, we sell equipment and stuff. And we're now moving into general pet stuff like dog food and, you know, shit like that. And we've been talking about potentially seeing what we can do in Europe. So how about we set up there so long, we start supplying before we even touch the soil. How about we see if we can get a supplier on our side to do distribution for us, and then we do marketing and sales. And then by the time we get there, there's something happening and we can grow from there. So I'm thinking about trying to find an opportunity there with Tesita to go, the two of us together. She's extremely excited. It's her favorite place in the world. I've never been, but from what I hear, it's an excellent place. And I do have friends who live there. So I've started to realize that some of the people who I know that I see sort of not regularly, you know, like friends that you only see 2 to 3 times a year, or perhaps friends that live far away. And by far away now, I'm talking about like KZN, that's, you know, 6 hours drive or whatever. Friends that live quote unquote far away who you only see once a year. If I see them now again, that might be the last time I see them. Ever. Like I might see them again once I'm 35 and, you know, I'm swinging by South Africa again for something, you know, are you in town? You happen to be. So to then have coffee with people. Like now, earlier we had Mexican before we came and did this podcast. Then think like, how many times am I still going to see Kwena before I go? If I end up going away.
You'll see me on TV a lot.
I'll see you on TV. I'll tell you what, if I can manage to turn this podcast into something really special, like turn it into a big thing that's making a lot of money, I don't see any reason why I would not fly people over for podcasts every now and again. I think it would be a good time. I mean, Zoom podcasts and, you know, those are always a thing, but I'm not so keen on them. They're just not
I'm
as fun.
keen to come to the Netherlands as well. So
yes,
let's make it happen.
We'll do it. We'll do a bulk. We'll buy in bulk. We'll get like 8 people that I like from South Africa all at the same time. We'll do 2 podcasts a day for 4 days, and then you all fly back.
Yeah,
we spend loads of time, and then I have like a month off, and I can just release the podcast, you know, sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for, gradually. But yeah, so it's given me, I mean, obviously it's a dream right now. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. But it's given me suddenly an appreciation of knowing, okay, my brother is not coming. You know? How, like, shit. My days being able to go into go watch some TV with my brother, and we watch the new episodes of Clarkson's Farm on Amazon, and it's like those days are numbered, you know. And suddenly when you live overseas, now the gaps, you know, you still see your family, but the gaps are long, you know. The gaps are 6 months, the gaps are a year, the gaps are 2 years. I mean, I know people who have family overseas that they see like ritualistically once every 4th year. They go for a month. And I'm thinking, how much changes in 4 years?
4 years.
You know? It's like you're meeting a new person every time. So yeah, it's given me a bit more perspective, thinking about let's try and really savor this moment. Let's try to really enjoy one another's company, and COVID allowing, let's try to see these people and form those genuine connections while I still have the opportunity. But yeah, so you'll be on TV.
I'm always on TV.
Yes, I mean, you're on TV already. You're on TV all the time. I see it on the Instagram. Yeah, no, got a debate. I'm busy chatting to this person. We're talking about some political agenda concept or whatever. So let's talk a little bit. So every time I have you on, and I've had you on like so you were guest number 3. Then you came on again at like 16 or something. And now 25. So let's say there's about 10 episodes between every time that I see you, which is about probably 2 to 3 months in a good schedule. It's now been a bit hectic, but 2 to 3 months. So every time I see you, I talk to you about your goals and your ambitions. I talk to you about where you're headed and what your ideas and your plans are for the coming. So the first time I chatted to you, you said to me that you were looking at maybe, your eventual goal was to become a minister, you thought. Then I spoke to you again, and you said that you didn't really know if the political scene was for you. And you were sort of feeling a little bit, you didn't know if you really still aligned with the values that you were presenting, etc., etc. And now it's a few months later. How do you feel now?
Hey, you see, I'm very shifty. No, I think for me, I've always I don't plan too far ahead, right? I like to seize the moment, and so when I see opportunities, I take them. And I think that the last time I was on here, I was saying that I felt that I needed some time outside of the political space to really assess my own values, build my own sort of vision for what I believe the future of this country needs to look like. And I've decided since that my intention is now to run for mayor in 2026 inside Steyn. And so
2026 is a long time. Why 2026?
Well, 5 years. Local government elections are this year. It's definitely too late for me to run now.
All right. So next time.
The next time is 2026. That'd still be 31, 32. So still young. But yeah, no, I think that I definitely do see myself inside the political space. I'm obviously also involved in a lot of non-profit organizations, and so I feel like as long as I'm making a difference, sometimes in the political space, sometimes in the NGO space, but I think long term for me, it's really to now say that the vision is 2026. Because I look at sort of the direction that city of Tshwane, Pretoria is moving in, the demographic, it's a very, very young demographic, and I feel that young people need to start actually holding positions of power, real positions of power inside our government institutions. And so now 2026 is the focus. Right now I'm focusing on the mayoral campaign for Randall Williams. So he's the current mayor of Tshwane. But once we've made him mayor again, I intend on, and I've informed him that I intend on coming for his job in 5 years. So.
What did he say?
No, he laughed. I still
won't be laughing for long.
He said he was going to make me a card. He said so that I could start going around to people. What is it? Not like mayor apprentice or something like that.
Assistant to the regional mayor.
So he said that no, he's gonna create some form of documentation for me to say that no, I can speak in official capacity as the future mayor in 2026.
Very nice, very cool. That's excellent. I wish you the best.
I appreciate it.
No, that would be great. I know too many people who could potentially become the president of this country. I feel like I need to stay to take advantage of those benefits.
It's not going to the Netherlands.
I don't know anyone there. Two people.
I never intend on running for president.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Never's a long time.
Unless
you become mayor and then you think
Yeah, no, I've always said, like, I only enter battles that I believe I can win. And so I think if in 10, 15, 20 years I said that, look, I could legitimately make a run for president, it would be a different story. But given the current political space, I don't see a clear road to president. In the same way that I see a road to mayor. So
okay, fair.
So
you think you're always
26?
Yes, we'll do. If I'm in the Netherlands at the time, or anywhere in Europe or whatever, I reckon I'll fly you over, and you can come record a part of your campaign podcast with me. But we won't put it on the normal channel. We'll send it. We'll put it directly to your voters.
Yeah.
We'll have this video available, and I think that would be excellent.
Yeah.
Good job.
No, I mean, it's like I was saying to you. I mean, we actually have started doing similar types of podcasts for actual campaigners as a party. We've been interviewing councillors. We interviewed the mayor last weekend, and it's the same sort of podcast style that I've learned from you.
So if I've now gone and inspired the way that the DA is now working on their campaigning, does that mean that you can get me on the phone with John Steyn in some time?
I suspect so.
I suspect
if we
so
win,
as well.
If we win.
Yeah. I'd love to have John on. I'd love to have Julius on. I'd love to have all of them. I'd love to have people on at the same time. You never see this. You always see when there's a debate between, let's say, John Steyn and Julius Malema, and it's happening in Parliament, and they're screaming at each other, and there's people. That's bullshit, man. Come on. We need to have proper, sit down around the table with JC Steyn and say, okay, gentlemen, let's discuss this, because we actually agree on most things. Let's go step by step through some of the ideas that you guys have got, some of the things that are hotly contested, and let's just keep it civil. We're not screaming at each other here. If you scream, I'm going to ask you to leave. And then the other guy's just going to have me for the rest of the podcast to chat to. Let's just do it civilly. I would do that in a heartbeat. If someone said to me, listen, man, can you host a political debate between, Cyril and John or whatever, I'd say yes. Where and when? I will pay for my own flights. Where am I going? Let me sit down and host this.
No, and I think it would be good, because I mean, it's like I look at the analogies we were speaking about earlier. I think that currently the political engagement in our country is what we were talking about, with two stones being thrown at each other. But I think that informal spaces like this allow for the clay method, because in the end of the day, I've always said I can work with anyone from any political organization, because in the end of the day, I think that 80% of people that enter the political space do so for the right reasons. We just all have different ideas on how we better the lives of South Africans.
Yeah, I can't remember now where this idea came from. I'm not sure if I read something or saw something, but there's people who say, and this is really true, is that even in the most far left and far right people, they agree on 90 to 95% of topics. They agree on almost everything. There's a handful of things that they disagree on. And since these are the things that are generating now controversy between them, these are the things that are blown up to look as if they are their entire identity.
Yeah.
But if you sit Julius down and you sit John down and you chat to both of them, they both want this country to be better. They disagree on how it should happen. They might even disagree on what's wrong with it right now, but they definitely want people to be better. They also want the people they like to be successful. They want people to be able to live in this country and be happy and be wealthy and be well taken care of.
Yep.
And I think that if you can talk to these two guys and have them sit here calmly, each of them with a nice cocktail in hand, chatting to one another, and I could say to them, guys, don't you just think that things should be better? Yeah. So you guys actually agree on something. Why don't we make after a football game when you're in primary school, it's shake hands. Just shake hands. Just no matter how the game went, just shake hands. Let's sit, let's discuss. And if Julius starts screaming, calm down, Julius, please. Do we need to take a break? You know? I think that something like that could be really valuable. I think that our communication surrounding political ideas is grossly outdated. I mean, in a day, think about who's that guy, Logan Paul, right? He's now boxing and whatever. He used to be a vlogger, okay?
I used to watch.
Yeah. He used to post a vlog every single day. And how that would work, I've heard, is that he would record a load of footage during the day. He'd send it to an editor across the world who would spend their day, different time zones, editing the video, and they would then post it the following Jake or Logan Paul's following morning. So every day a vlog came out which was delayed by just one day. That's insane. Incredible. Yeah. And he did that for years, every single day. Okay, amazing. You know, I don't like the guy very much, but his ability to produce content is unmatched.
Yeah,
very
100%.
Good. Now, and that's just with the resources that he had.
Yeah.
Now you look at the political space, okay, where we have issues with transparency, we have issues with trust, we have issues with open communication, we have issues with debate and discussion. What would keep a president from having every single night a YouTube live stream where he sits down for half an hour and he just talks about what he's dealing with right now and what he was doing that day, and says, you know, and let's say that there's like you could make the argument that no, you can't do that because what if there's like a secret, you know, what if you accidentally let something out? Those things have delays on them, and you can stop them, you can cut it very quickly.
You can't speak about the aliens,
so
you know?
So he could have a guy sitting there who knows, who's like the check, the filter, who knows, okay, there are certain things that we don't really want to talk about right now. And then every night Cyril Ramaphosa sits down, can everyone hear me? Hello. Subscribe, like and subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And Cyril says, okay, so yeah, Tuesday, hectic. Okay, so this morning I had a meeting with this guy and, you know, it was good. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and fix the roads in major metropolitan areas. We discussed the finances. We think about potentially cutting military spending, but we haven't made any final decisions. And people could tune... We've spoken about the panel government before. People could tune into this and they could really get... You know, it humanizes them. It makes them look like people. And people can go and comment. And there's someone moderating these comments to make sure that they're not just saying, Cyril, you're the worst. It's like comments like, hi, Cyril, what's the plan for, you know, whatever? You know, you name it. Health expenditure. What's the plan for health expenditure next year? I've noticed that there's an increase in health expenditure in most first world countries due to increasing costs of medical equipment. How do you think you'll account for this? And there's someone sitting on an iPad saying, shit, this is a good question. Okay,
send it through. Yeah.
Goes to Cyril's screen. He says that, he reads, it goes, oh, thank you, Big Titties 44. That's a great question. Let's talk about it.
If
and
that,
he just chats.
If Big Titties 44 makes it through, that screener should be fired. No, but I think it's a good idea, and I think that's what's awesome about technology is that
we're not utilizing it properly in this space.
Let me quickly low power mode.
Oh, let's do this.
It's still recording.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me pull this around. I'll edit this out. I always say I'll edit this out whenever anything goes wrong, and I almost never edit it out.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I leave it because it's authentic. Plug that in and just make sure.
David, watch how this is done. There's ways to mess with an iPhone without pausing the video. Still recording.
Charging. Good stuff. Excellent. Okay,
but,
so yes, you
but
were
yeah,
saying?
as I was saying, like with tech these days, it's so easy to engage with a large audience, literally with a smartphone, you know, and it actually might, what you've suggested might be something I try and implement at a later stage. But we, for example, now inside Tswane every Sunday, every Friday I go to the mayor's house. We shoot a video that we then release on Sunday, and in that video he lays out his plans for the week. So it's essentially his diary. Monday
That's perfect,
I'll be going here, Tuesday. But I quite like your idea of a live where there can almost be engagement, you know, because I think that it's so easy in this day and age. You don't
Super
need to
easy.
fill up a stadium. You can fill up Instagram Live with 100, 200,000 people in a second.
I've been saying this, is that people who work in the government are the employees of the people. We pay them with our tax money. They are our employees.
Thank you very much for that, by the way.
Cheers. I pay tax in the US, by the way. Yeah, no, because of YouTube. So I work through YouTube. So all my tax is deducted from the amount I get paid by the time it gets to me. It's not going to SARS, so it's going to the US Revenue Service. But anyway, so I've been saying this, is that, you know, there's a big flaw in political communication right now, and I feel as if government employees are the employees of the people. There are elected people who are supposed to do a specific job for us. First things first, if they're doing a rubbish job, they need to be removed very quickly and you know, easily. But secondly, if I was, let's say that I was, so let's compare it to a gated area that has a homeowners association. Everyone there pays a certain amount of tax every month for a security guard. Okay, so that tax goes to this, and then they pay the salary of a security guard. We see that all over the place in South Africa. Suburbs will have like 3 streets that are fenced off, and there's only one way to get in and out of that little area. It's not an official like municipal area. It's just they've made it up, and it's a homeowners association, and they all pay together for a security guard or cameras or whatever to make sure that they're all safe. If something goes wrong there, they should all know about it, like, because they are paying the bills, right? Imagine the security guard decided that from now on he's going rogue, he's doing things on his own, and no one can tell him, like, he goes, what right do the homeowners have to know what I'm doing? It's exactly the same on a much larger scale. A government official keeping secrets from the people, obviously there are some lines, like you don't want to tell them about military stuff, whatever, but a government organization keeping secrets from people, like, what right do they have? We pay their salaries, like, that we should know what's going on so that we can know if they're doing a good job. So again, I've discussed the panel government a million times. If people, I'm not going to go deep into it again. If people want to hear about this panel government, go watch our previous one, me and Kwena. But the idea of people being able to sit as if they were sitting in a meeting with every meeting that's going on within our cabinet. You know, we have cameras in the rooms that have audio at table level. Like, you know, a seat is a camera, and we're sitting there, and I can go at any time and I can log on to this channel on TV or on YouTube or whatever, and I can go and watch the meeting happening in real time. Because I deserve to know what's going on, you know? I think that, and I don't know if this is a realistic target. I don't think it is, because it doesn't really work in the favor of sketchy politicians. But what would be excellent is if we could have that feeling of transparency in government as a whole. That would just be excellent. If every day, I mean, we've spoken about this a million times, if every day the president published a short little Instagram live at Cyril and just said, hey guys, so basically this is what we were doing today. And it can be quick, like how in high school, sometimes we would have to give a 3 to 5 minute speech in English. I would write that speech in the previous period. Like, I'd be sitting there on quick, read it like 5 times, right, got it, memorized, cut the piece of paper up into cue cards, and then read, you know, give my speech, and I got great marks, right? Why don't we do that? He could, every day, he could go sit down, okay, yeah, where's my calendar? Okay, oh, yeah, okay, cool. This is what I did today. Go quickly. Okay, hi guys, quick and easy. This is what I did today. Any questions? Top 5 questions sent through. Okay. All right. Good question. This is what we're going to do. I can't talk about that right now, but I'm going to talk about that on Monday. So let's just, you know, keep that in archive, blah, 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 whatever. And that way people will just feel so much better about their governance. Connected. It's a great word to use. So yeah, listen, David talks a lot about his long-term project, and I'm pretty sure that he wants to be president. So if it ends up with David president and you as a minister, or the other way around, I expect this implemented. You're not going to ignore my calls then, right? You're not going to be playing Warzone.
I've told David that I'll always be playing Warzone. I've told David though that if or when he becomes president, that I will be his chief of staff. I have told him that. I love the idea of being, Doug from House of Cards, except maybe a lot less shady.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, me and David have had that conversation, and I've informed him that if that's the route he decides to take, I fully intend on being his chief of staff.
No, that's excellent. I think it would be so grand. If I knew that many people that high level in government, that would be great. That would be excellent.
But
pick up the phone. Yes, I really need this license today. David, can you get me a building license today? For legal reasons, that's a joke.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought you wanted a different type of government.
Oh, yeah. Yes. No, but it would be excellent. I think it would be great. Over the course of this podcast, I've met so many cool people, man. I've met so many people who, not only people who have done great things, but those same people have potential to do more great things. It's like a snowball. You start small, and you say, okay, I'm just a very ordinary, normal person. I want to be great. I want to do something incredible. So let me just push myself a little bit, and I'm going to pick up a little bit more snow, and that's going to be something cool that I've just done. I've just posted this, or I've just met this person, or I've just had coffee with this person. So let them help me. Let's keep pushing this ball. And before you know it, greatness is unavoidable. Before you know it, you've set yourself down a path, and it's going to happen to you whether you like it or not.
No, I agree with that.
And before you know it, you have done the cool things, and you're proud, and you can look back in your life and go, holy shit, man, that was great. I've met so many people like that. People whose balls are rolling fast. people who are doing incredible things. So, and the more people I meet, the more opportunities I have to meet more people like that. Like I know you well. John could come on the podcast someday.
One day,
someday
it's a
soon.
promise. It will happen.
Great.
Let's wait for after elections.
Then I'm trying to get in contact with Tatiana Schoenmaker, the gold Olympic medalist. I'd love to chat with her. She's on holiday right now, the Netherlands. So I'd love to chat to her when she gets back about the Olympics and what that's like, And then people like Alma, who we've spoken about, who is just doing amazing things. People like Arnu, who's now on Netflix, and he's got more work and more offers than he knows what to do with, and just people like that who are on really excellent trajectories, and who I will be watching very closely and rooting for a long time. I've said this on the podcast before. I used to know a guy, I still know him, but I haven't spoken to him in a long time. His name is Daniel De Silva, and he's a very good football player. Okay, so he went to our high school, and he was one of those guys who, up until matric, said that his dream was to become a professional football player, and that was what he was working towards every day. So one day, we were in class, and some girl said, Daniel's just going to end up playing for the Orlando Pirates, which is now obviously one of South Africa's local tiny football clubs. And I said, if Daniel plays for the Orlando Pirates, I will buy a season ticket. I will be at every game they ever play, because I'm a fan. I'm that kind of person who is a fan of people. Yeah. And I'm so lucky that I have been able to befriend and host many people who I am a big fan of. Someone like Skulk. I see Skulk on TV 5 times a day. He's on every ad, he's on every show. He's just absolutely rocking it right now. His social media is blowing up. He's the best comedian in the country at this point. He's just great. Yeah. And I know that guy. I'm such a fan, and becoming his friend has only made me more of a fan. And I'm excited to meet more people like that, and I'm excited to be able to become a fan of more people who are just incredible. So yeah, I mean, give me more reason to be your fan, please, over the coming years, because I'll be rooting for you. Yes, but yeah, it's great, man. This podcast has it's like I told you last time you came on the podcast. I think the total views were like 2,800. Now we're sitting at 250,000 total views.
Yeah, it's insane.
You know, like fewer than 10 episodes later, I think. And, you know, we went from... Last time I saw you, I was on like 100 and something subscribers on YouTube. Now it's 4,083, I think, this morning. I still check it every day.
And you find that like 3,000 of those are probably here for me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought
mostly
me back.
Kwena fans, yeah. I reckon. I think we should just... I actually, you know, I said this... who was I talking to? I don't know. I said this to someone very recently. I said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a monthly set podcast. Like first podcast of every month is going to be with the same person, okay? Or people. And what I was thinking, I haven't discussed this with Kwena yet, what I was thinking is to have you and Arnu on. Because Arnu, you haven't met him, but he's like very fun guy to chat with, but also very intelligent, very clever, very cool opinions. So I was thinking now, I've obviously made enough money from YouTube that I can now buy another mic. I can make a plan for another camera. The only thing I've got right now is my laptop only has 2 ports. And if you want to go buy like something that is going to make more ports available, that's going to be a lot of cash, but I'm happy to do it if it means that the podcast can continue growing. You know, it's like a business. You reinvest the money you make. So I don't know if eventually what we'll end up doing on Joe Rogan's podcast, he has 2 different sections, right? So he has his standard podcast. So it'll say, for example, Kwena Moloto number 1219. That's the episode number. And if you scroll down, it'll go like that. 2918, 2917, 2000, etc. But he also has something that he does called an MMA show, which is almost like a separate series where he talks to MMA fighters about MMA only on his channel. And those will be named like MMA show number 1, number 2, separately from the others, but on the same show.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if I do like a monthly episode with the same guys every month, and we just do that for as long as we possibly can.
That'd be cool.
And that becomes a separate format on the same channel. And then on YouTube we have it as well. But I mean, we can play with it then, because we can say, okay, let's not do it here in my apartment where we're setting up on my big table. Let's do it at a different location. Let's get like a background. Let's rent a place once a month for this purpose, or you know, etc., etc. So I think it could be a lot of fun.
No, that sounds like a vibe, man.
Yeah, something we'll chat about. And I'll get you and Arnu together. I had coffee with him the other day. I'll get the 2 of you together. We can have a beer together.
I was about to say, next time there has to be a beer or whiskey or something on this table.
You know, I've thought about that. Because I don't really drink alcohol, so I don't want people to be like looking and saying, "Oh, Kwena's got a glass of whiskey. JC's such a pretentious prick with his water." But I don't really care about that, because it's my show and I'll do what I want. So I think starting next time, it's not episode 25, so let's call it episode 34. Okay, episode 34. I guarantee this: Kwena will be sitting here with a nice glass of whiskey, and that podcast is going to be wild.
Yeah. Like, if you want it to be wild, there needs to be a bottle of whiskey, not a glass.
Holy shit! All right, man. Well, I mean, we're coming up on last 15 minutes or so. So let's talk about some advice. Let's ask, because Kwena is a very wise person. So let's ask Kwena. We've now been talking about a lot of things, and one of the topics that we've touched on is being great. Those trajectories. Let's try and set myself on a winning trajectory. From the mouth of Kwena Moloto, what is your advice to a guy who's just started his first year at Tux or wherever, and he wants to be excellent? What's your advice?
Sure. Yeah, I've got a lot, I think.
Well, you got 15 minutes.
I got 15 minutes. When I said a lot, I don't think 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a long time. I think. Firstly, it might sound like a cliche, but I think it's something that a lot of people fail to do. and that's making sure that you're never the smartest person in the room. I have always surrounded myself with people that are 3, 4, 5 times smarter than me, but it's always forced me to want to grow, and also more successful than me, whether it be in the political space, the business space. I surround myself with people that I aspire to, sort of reach the heights that they've reached. And I think if you get into a space, I've always said that the probably the toughest time in my life was when I was SRC president, because I was suddenly the smartest person in the room. There's no higher student leadership structure at or position at UP, and I felt like I didn't grow at all. I was giving information to people, I was mentoring people, but I didn't feel like there was any growth for me. So the one thing for me is always make sure that you surround yourself with people that are smarter, more successful than you. Actually, another story about that. When I was 13, I started playing chess for tucks, and I would get thrashed. I think I won one game in a tournament. Other time in practice and tournaments, everyone would smile when they got to play against me because they knew they were going to win, But when I played against my peers, I was a champion, because I'd surrounded myself with people that were just so much better than me, and I learned a lot. Another one, I think always be kind, and open to engaging anyone, not just based off, who they are, their title, but just for me, always be open to people. The way you and me met, it was just hey man, like you're sitting there alone, why don't you come join our table?
That was nice.
Yeah,
good day.
There were a lot of arrogant student leaders that have probably been like, I'm going to continue sitting here, but we sat, we chatted, and now look where we are, and even the network that you opened me up to, with those young entrepreneurs that we would sometimes have our breakfast with and stuff, So for me also, you never almost judge a book by its cover, and it's just be kind wherever you can. Be humble. I think that's another big one. Arrogance will kill you one day. If you feel like you're the shit, you will eventually fail. I think that I'd even said it. The other day I was taking pictures of all of the mayoral candidates in Gauteng. And since my first campaign, I've moved up quite a lot in the party. 2016, I was essentially the water boy, I traveled around with Solly everywhere. I would literally bring him water when he was speaking. I'd respond to tweets for him. Now I've moved up. I'm in council. I'm the national chairperson for DASO. And still people would, while I was there, can you fetch me a glass of water? Will you hang these clothes up for me? And for me, I didn't get into a space where I'm like, damn it, no, like you don't know who I am, It's like, for me, it's like, no, you must always be willing to humble yourself. And then I think keep your circle small, and really have people in your life that fill your cup, For me, family will always be the most important people in my life, and my friend group is also very small. I chill with pretty much, in terms of that close connection, it's probably like 10, 15 people that I chill with on a consistent basis, but they're people that I know I'm growing with, that are growing with me, that are there, as you said, because they're fans and I'm their fan, rather than a situation where it's someone that's good. They're for good times, but not a long time. So yeah, I think that would be some of it. Also, this one might be more controversial because there are a lot of people that I speak to that disagree. I don't support this thing of 5-year and 10-year plans. I really believe that you should take opportunities as they come. When I went to UP, I said, no, I'm going to study political science. Realized I didn't enjoy political science at all. Moved to history and anthropology, even though people thought this is a shift away from your career path, When I came to UP, academics was my focus. student politics then very quickly became my focus because I saw an opportunity, and then I became one of the youngest councillors in Tswane's history, not the youngest, but one of the youngest. And so for me also, it's I think people often get trapped in, this is my vision for who I need to be, and then they turn down opportunities as they arise. And I think it's so important to really seize the moment. I'm someone that lives in the now, and have a goal. I know I want to be mayor in 2026, but I don't have a 10-point plan on how that's going to happen. I don't say that, no, I must get my master's degree now, and then I must, have built up a social media page with this much following. And no. I as opportunities rise, I say, this is how I'm going to move there. So yeah, that would be my 15 minutes or 10 minutes, or however long.
4 minutes.
Was it only 4 minutes? I have no knowledge, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that so I believe in planning. I believe in even long-term planning, but you should definitely remain as flexible as possible.
Yeah.
So, for example, sort of exactly what you're doing, saying, okay, I want to be mayor in 2026. I'm going to set myself on that trajectory, and I'm going to make sure that decisions I make along the way are going to be in favor of that eventual end goal. But I'm not going to, break it down day by day, step by step, because you miss things. When you're too focused, when you have tunnel vision with your goal at the end and you're peering through a straw, you miss everything on the side. And potentially you could be missing something really special, or something which could boost you towards that quite quickly, and
exactly.
you don't even realize it. So yeah, I think it's always good to remain flexible while still keeping a goal in mind. I mean, when I started studying law. It was awful. I was terrible at it.
Yeah.
I say I was terrible at it. I did not
enjoy it.
I didn't enjoy it enough to give it my all.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was there. And I started my first business on the second day of orientation week. With some guys I had met the previous day. I said, let's do this. Come the 5 of us, I've got this idea. And within a month, 2 of the guys had left, and we'd replace them with 2 other guys. But we'd made some money, a couple, nothing. But we'd made a little bit of money, enough for proof of concept. And that, I spent my entire first 2 years focused on my student business.
Yeah.
And I suffered for it. It was like I eventually came very close to dropping out, decided to change my degree to entrepreneurship. And I enjoy that more, but I'm still not the guy who studies every night, all through the night, and I'm still not that guy.
Yeah.
I started off with Summarize. I did that for a little while. I got an opportunity from a tech company, a tech startup, who wanted me to help them with business development. I did that. That led to another opportunity and another and another. And now I'm sitting here. If you count the podcast, I'm running 4 businesses, and I'm still doing my degree. If I had said no to any opportunity along the line, I would definitely not be here right now. This podcast, I have to thank the newspaper that I worked at for a while, because that's where I met Tasita, and she's the one who pushed me to actually do this as opposed to just procrastinating. For the newspaper job, I have to thank Letterbox, which is a tech startup I worked at for a brief period of time, and it failed. And I worked there for less than a year, and it failed, and I never touched it again. For Letterbox, I have to thank Summarize, because it was through Summarize that I got in contact with Tux Innovation, and thus was directed towards Letterbox. Also, my aquarium business, and potentially my future move to the Netherlands being possible, I also have Summarize to thank, because I've started that with the same guys that I started with on that second day in orientation week. Actually, funnily enough, I'm just now realizing this. So we started with 5 guys. 2 of them left and were replaced by 2 others. Those 2 others are the ones I've now started this business with. So, but yeah, I mean, regardless, it's, you know, there's a lot of decisions that I made which would not have obviously have led me where they did.
Exactly.
You know, now I've got a podcast. I'm now a YouTuber. I'm not doing a podcast on the internet that some people... I mean, I posted a new episode yesterday. Within half an hour, I had a bunch of downloads. 3 of them were from South Africa. The rest were in the US and the UK.
That's insane, yeah.
With some people in Canada, some people in Italy, some people in Russia, all over the world immediately downloaded my podcast within the first half hour. That could lead to an opportunity somewhere. No, you know, I've received 100%. I've received emails from fans, like podcast fans. I haven't received any opportunities, but people talking to me about the things I've discussed, people telling me about their ideas and their thoughts. I receive emails from people, DMs from people pretty regularly, and you know, who knows? One of them might become an opportunity one day, and then I'll be sitting in that company doing that thing, saying I have the podcast to thank for that.
Yeah. No, 100%.
So, yeah.
I mean, I say with my political career, that's how it kicked off. I went to an event where there was some walk at 7 a.m. Around the safety in the Groenkloof Nature Reserve. Almost no one showed up. Helen Zille was there. Solly was there. Solly was running for mayor. Solly was like, you're a cool kid. Why don't you come to Woodlands with us to campaign? Went to Woodlands. Then he said, why don't you come back for the rest of the week? And after that, I just
and there it was.
skyrocketed, you know, but it wasn't because...
it wasn't because of some planned
decision. No. I just woke up early the one day and decided, let me go for this walk, you know. And so yeah, no, being able to... Because that's the truth, is that... And I mean, my dad always says that. I mean, he says there's millions of people with the most brilliant ideas that never come to fruition just because they weren't presented with the opportunity. Like, I think that's another frustrating...
Or they missed it.
Yeah, or they missed it, you know. But it's like one of those tough things, like when we are talking about love, you know, it's like you can have something great, but the circumstances just don't allow for for that relationship or that bond to develop. And it's the same thing with business, with anything you want to achieve in life, you know. I know so many people that have gotten jobs from someone that they met at, you know, a bar or at a networking event.
I want to just chip in on that really quickly because we're pretty much out of time. I read a book recently that was talking about that phenomenon specifically, and what they basically said was your closest friends, like I'm talking not about the people you talk to about business and stuff, the people who you talk to about just your relationships and how you're feeling. Those people, even though they themselves don't know it or it's a subconscious thing, they are very invested in you staying exactly where you are. Because for as long as you are staying exactly where you are, you're going to be the same person, which means that you can be the same friend. Okay? Your acquaintances, people you've met a couple times, friends of friends, you know, people who you sort of see every now and again, they are more invested in you doing well and in you, you know, taking advantage of opportunities and pursuing your career interests, because, you know, a person will say, you know, I know that guy, Kwena, he's excellent. What can he do for us?
Yeah.
And that's then where your opportunity comes from. Your great opportunities will almost never come from your best mates.
Yeah. No,
and I'm
true.
not saying write off all your best mates.
Yeah.
They have their place in your life, but don't say no to an opportunity just because it hasn't come from a place of comfort and familiarity.
Yeah.
Almost always an opportunity will come from a scary place that you are very unfamiliar with. It's someone said this, someone important said said if someone offers you an amazing opportunity, say yes and learn how to do it later. Very important.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, with that, Kwena Moloto, it is always awesome to have you on, and hopefully this is the third of many. We'll do this again.
You said, see you in episode 33.
34, I think.
34.
33, 34, we'll chat. But yeah, you'll have your glass of whiskey then.
Yeah,
all right, tell the people quickly where they can find you on the socials.
You can find me on Instagram, Kwena_94. It's the only one that I really use.
It's the official one.
Yeah, my Twitter page, I don't use that. I've been attacked on Twitter so many times that I've said I don't belong in these Twitter streets. So Instagram is the only place you can find me.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much for coming on, for your time.
I appreciate it, my brother.
And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. Cheers.